All right, we're recording.
Good recording.
Yep, take it away.
Excellent. Thanks, Max. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mark Myers. I'm the city manager for the city of Bath. I'm also the president of the board of directors for Minnesota Council of Governments. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces here, familiar friends here today. Also new faces as we gather here at Brunswick Landing. And a warm welcome to everybody joining on Zoom. We always have to where am I on Zoom land? Well, you have it at waist level. I'm always concerned when trying to present on Zoom. Today marks the Midcoast Council of Governments General Assembly annual business meeting. It's an opportunity to reflect on the work of the past year and look ahead at what we're building together, and make decisions on where we're going into the future. It's a full and exciting day, and I'm grateful to Executive Director Matthew Eddy, Charlotte Nutt, and all the MCOG staff who have helped make it possible. So thank you all. But you do a round of applause. We'll start the day today with our always riveting and engaging business session, covering our budget, officer elections, and key updates from the director and staff. After the break, we'll have Jacob Sesker presenting findings from Midcoast Arts and Culture Inventory, work that speaks directly to the richness and potential of this region. Following lunch, we'll hear from Maine Coast Heritage Trust on the important topic of public access to land. And we'll close the afternoon for those that are able to take advantage of the tour of the innovative tech place as well, right here at Brunswick Landing. So I look forward to making this a productive and inspiring day for everyone. Certainly a great opportunity for us all to be able to get together as well as network and connect. I want to extend again sincere thanks to our speakers, presenters today, to Wild Oats, unless I start any changes, for pastries and lunch that will be provided. And finally, to Maine Maritime Academy for hosting us here today. And with that, I will turn it over to our host, John Harry from Maine Maritime Academy, to talk about this facility and the good work taking place here. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. First of all, just welcome to Maine Maritime's Maritime Industrial Training Center facility. It's always interesting kind of talking. Everyone has different perspectives of this building. Some people know it as the Navy Exchange and some people know it as Wayfair. Maybe this is kind of indicative of where the country's going, but we're working to figure out how we take kind of what used to be a call center and everything with AI and figure out how we train pipe fitters and welders in here. And so that is essentially what we're doing. So just up here, just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a context of what the goal is here and on this site from a Maine Maritime perspective. So, and apologize if some of you already know this, right? Maine Maritime is one of the 6 federally recognized maritime academies in the country. And the big kind of picture with the trades that is kind of in the news and everyone understands, right, demographic issues, workforce issues. We can't hire enough plumbers, welders, pipe fitters, ship fitters, et cetera. That challenge is especially acute in the maritime industry. And so, and then even more acute when you start to talk about, defense focused maritime industry, right? And so, we basically need to come up with 250,000 by some accounts tradespeople to work in shipbuilding, just as a status quo, right? That's before all the talk of how do we revitalize the commercial maritime industry in the U.S. And so a lot of our mission focus here is how can we position Maine Maritime to do that. And so what we've done and President Johnson has done kind of nationally is work with the Marine Administration, Department of the Navy, and some other stakeholders to basically figure out how do we position maritime academies nationally to start to coordinate workforce development initiatives specifically to maritime, and how do we do that here. And so what we're basically doing in Brunswick is essentially a pilot nationally, if we can kind of nail it, which I know we will, for the maritime academies to take a little bit more of a coordination position nationally in terms of delivering a maritime workforce. Kind of what does that actually mean? It's kind of four pillars, essentially, what we're working on. One is apprenticeship programs, right? So maritime focused apprenticeship programs, that is actually active here. We've got 5 classrooms in the corner. Depending on when the folks are here, they're not here every day, but we're delivering apprenticeship programs, which we're in the process of scaling to 400 apprentices in the maritime space. working to kind of roll out additional apprenticeship programs as well. But that's kind of a pillar that is in existence and something that we're leaning into. The second kind of big pillar that we're doing here is really workforce development, right? And so that is building on kind of the community college infrastructure, but really focused on maritime and focused on a regional perspective, right? And there's a few models across the country of various regions that have deployed kind of more maritime specific and defense specific focus accelerated training models. And that's what we're looking at doing here, right? And so that means working with core employers such as Bath and Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, as well as all the tier 2s and tier 3 suppliers to essentially identify basically commonalities, core trades, and how can we deliver that to accelerate the workforce, right? And that's the goal, is essentially to take the current student pipeline that's coming out of the K through 12 pipeline and the community colleges, recognize that there's still, in some cases, upwards of a year of training that the shipyards are doing just to accelerate, to get productive workforce, right? And can we start to basically offboard some of that in a coordinated regional way? And that kind of rolls into the third pillar, which is really the K to 12 pipeline, right? And so what we've been working on somewhat nationally with a bunch of the shipyards on the East Coast is, if we can really build these curriculums in the right way and build the training in the right way, then you can start to modularize it and shift it back to the K through 12 pipeline, right? And so we've been working with Region 10 here and some of the kind of launching a Blue Schools initiative with Northwest Maritime on how do you engage the K through 12 into the maritime industry. And tactically, what that really looks like is, okay, we identify that our region has a deficit of shipyard planners or designers 5 years down the road. We spin up apprenticeship programs for shipyard design, and then we work with the K through 12 pipeline, Region 10, to launch a design class, right? Not necessarily shipyard design class, but a design class, right? So you're just starting to feed that pipeline all the way through, and how do you get ahead of the challenges that we know? Last pillar is really advanced shipbuilding. So we're working with South Korea, with Finland, with Canada, a bunch of different shipyards on how do we basically pull advanced techniques globally internationally and develop and deliver advanced shipbuilding curriculums. Some of that's already in process, but we're figuring out basically how do we all deliver it in a centralized model in the building here. And so, the thought for what Brunswick turns into, working through a lot of the details, right, is kind of that half of the building is workforce. So we're scoping, working, kind of finalizing with the architects and all the planning details that we're working through on what we can train here. We're looking at basically expanding buildings on some of these sites for much more industrial training. And then, if we do everything right, it's great to have the open space to be able to host folks, but this is supposed to be a electrical and HVAC lab for the high schools. We do it right next fall. So, this building is going to get segmented into some classrooms. And the goal is to basically co-locate everything in a maritime focused regional training center. And how do we deliver that? Not just for Maine, but really for the region. We've, part of that is we're working with Electric Boat and Newport News and some of the other suppliers to essentially start to validate and credential, so everyone can start to talk from the same sheet of music in terms of what a ship fitter needs to do in Connecticut or Virginia or essentially Maine. And as we talk about the expanding commercial abilities, as we talked about, maritime nuclear, which is in discussions now, it's figuring out how to make sure that, the workforce is also trained to basically deliver that. So kind of a mouthful, but that is essentially what we're working on right now. And that means kind of getting the buy-in from the industry, getting the support from the federal state government, which has been great, and basically figuring out how we deliver ultimately in a sustainable model. So the key is we need to deliver this in a way that is not going to be permanently funded externally and can be kind of self-fulfilling, self-sustaining. So that's what we're working on here. Happy to have you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now. But we're pretty excited about everything that's happening, and that we could deliver, here regionally, but also just the spillover effects. So some of the models that we're looking at once we can start pumping 1,200 students a year out in a regional model here, right, there tends to be a lot more benefits, right? What we've modeled after in Virginia, the kind of locations that have done this, right, we've talked to multiple startups that are already looking at space just given what we're trying to do, right? And can we tailor our pipelines to help with their workforce needs, right? So how do you make workforce development a strategic asset for the region for other smaller employers or startups coming in the area? So that is it. That's what we're working on. Happy to have you, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have them, and if not, hand it back over to Mark.
Yes. I had a question about the K-12 pillar. Would that be like remote learning for students? Is that what you're thinking, or like how would that work?
We actually have them physically located.
They'd come right there. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
And we have had we this past fall delivered some design classes.
Okay. And so what's high school? I'm assuming high school students.
Yeah.
What schools would you be drawing from?
Right now, Region 10
Okay.
CTE.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically partnering with them and figuring out how to expand.
So you would expand.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Thanks.
I have a question. Are you looping in with any of the other trade schools like UTC and Bangor? A really great trades program.
Yeah. So we are right now. A lot of our work is basically figuring out what doesn't exist from the industry perspective and where can we essentially fit. So I think part of this is not duplicating what exists, and that's where this kind of regional coordination position of how do we coordinate from just frankly, right, Department of Labor is funding maritime workforce and the Navy's funding maritime workforce, and the White House has a separate funding of maritime workforce, and we're doing stuff locally in the state. And so it's how the maritime academies have always leaned forward in very a kind of practical learning approach. And so how can we just translate that to that?
They're always looking for new programs there.
Cool. Yeah. Great. Well, I was happy to have you.
Thanks, John.
Happy to give you a rundown, and if you need anything, I'll be around.
Perfect.
All right. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Let's see, how do I, oh yeah, I think, get me on the seated business meeting.
Yeah, the out's right there. It should be able to see.
Right here, it's looking at me. We'll transition right into the business meeting today. So this is a business meeting we don't have separately broken out on the agenda, but these are all General Assembly actions today, correct? So hopefully, anybody who's a voting member for the General Assembly is aware of their standing as a voting member of the General Assembly, that we are here today. But the agenda today includes approval of minutes from the November 2025 meeting, budget approval, election of officers, and a budget process amendment, director's report, website update, and the SEDS update as well. So we'll start right off with first order of business. We'll call the meeting to order and do approval of minutes from November 2025. I see Jeremy on Zoom wants to approve those minutes.
I make a motion to approve those minutes.
We'll get a second from Chris Rector. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. And we'll go on to budget approval.
So, I presented a budget to you that, as I noted in my notes, was higher than I was going to expect it to be this year. But as I've noted, we have a solid core of 5 programs that have 3-year contracts in them that essentially are covering the cost of staffers and the people that we have on board. So you have in front of you a proposed expenditure of 1.4 million, revenues of 1.5. I've left the 109 in revenues in place so that the executive board over time can address both the hiring of my replacement and from that tentative budgetary perspective. And also, in view of looking at different ways to think about financial management for the organization, that there's some leeway in the budget. What we all know, what we've all learned in the last 5 years is that, you know, to draw down that revenue, you got to build to it. You have to have people on board to build to it. But I feel as though the budget's pretty solid, more solid than there's less prospective guessing in this budget. It's all pretty solid. There's maybe about $100,000 that we expect from community contracts during the course of the year that will fill the whole budget out. And I don't know as I have any other additional comments except to also be clear that from this year's fiscal year perspective, we certainly expect to match expenditures and revenues together. We expect to see a little bit of surplus this year, not a big one, but a little one. And it'll all depend on our final quarter billing. I know that I talked to you all about what the government shutdown did, the board of directors at least, what the government shutdown did for us in the fall. It pushed a number of our contracts into late winter, early spring, or actually, there's Rebecca, actually maybe July 1st on one of the contracts that we expected 6 months ago. But we've been able to cover that with other revenue that came in. And that revenue flow has been coming in pretty steadily after a slow second quarter. We had a very good third quarter. We expect a very good fourth quarter. So,
Thank you, Matt. Any questions or comments on the budget? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the budget?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jeremy. Wait a second, was that Charlie?
Yes, it was.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you all. We'll move on to election of officers. So first off, I do just want to take a moment to recognize the MCOG Board of Directors members who are here today, or maybe if there's anybody can't see with the glare on Zoom. But if you're an MCOG board member, could you just raise your hand, say hello? You don't get to hide. I said both of you are hiding back there. Nicole Brian from Bodenham and Jim Chandler from Richmond as well. There you go, board members. Thank you all. Thanks for the folks who engage in the board. We do have board openings for anybody that would be interested in getting engaged at that level, particularly Knox County. Charlie, we also have a Saginaw County seat that at some point in time I'll chat with you guys about as well for the board of directors. But appreciate the work that this group does throughout the year to be engaged with this process. The current slate of officers would be myself as continuing as president, Audra Kaler as vice president, Mark Waltz as the treasurer. And for all those people who raise their hand, we are still looking for a secretary for the board of directors. And I've made a promise to Matt that in the future executive director contract that it would be that no staff would ever have to take minutes at a board of directors meeting. So we will have to fill the secretary seat at some point in time regardless. But that seat at this point is vacant. So at this point, if there's any comments on the slate of officers, seeing none, we'll
Move the slate.
Thank you, Charlie. Gonna get a second?
Second?
All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. And we'll move on to the budget process amendment.
so what we heard from last year's General Assembly was that there was a desire that a lot of people that came to the General Assembly meeting really didn't understand the budget. And the board of directors is really the one that understands the budget. Do it on a regular basis at our meetings. So I was tasked with going out and talking to our other council of governments to see how they reviewed and did the budget. And as it turns out, there are only a few only a couple that still do a general assembly approval. Most do a budget approval through their board of directors. Some actually do an approval through the officers. Our officers and our board of directors said that didn't seem like a good idea to them, and I don't think it is too. So what we've done, and you'll find it on page 2 of the handout of the director's report, under regular meetings, what we're doing is we're taking the responsibility of the budget away from the General Assembly. And in section 2, duties and functions that are under the board of directors, we're adding L, annually approve the agency budget by June 30th and amend as needed. And the amendment piece is the part that has really been important to us. We approve a budget in July and suddenly I have 2 new federal grants that come in with substantial resources and I don't have a budget that I can move. So we're always scrambling in November to get it onto the General Assembly there. Now we can take the approach of kind of an organized discussion with the board of directors when we have additional revenue to make appropriate changes. And that's what this amendment is meant to do.
Any questions on the proposed amendment?
Hi, this was my first meeting and I'm not a voting representative from Rockport. I'm on the planning board there. I'm fully in favor of boards making budget decisions, but I wonder if there should be or could be a formalized process by which the member communities have some input, some advance notice of the budget and some time period for comment before the board takes its vote.
I don't see a problem with that at all. We could formally do that too. In fact, we could make an amendment this if we wanted to, that said after review and approval, after review and comment by member communities. I think that's a good idea.
That was a key.
Got any other ideas? No, I think because we've also talked about, coming to this June General Assembly meeting was still some type of budget presentation, so people are aware of what's going on. A lot of our funding and moving parts of their budget are typically funding sources at the state and federal level, increased grants, increased resources. So it's important for the organization to be able to talk about the access to those funds and what those funds mean for the region in the future. But
just on that amendment, I pulled it forward. Make sure you have some language that the opportunity to, and we're not bound by having to take a head count percentage, some sort of community inventory, just for the opportunity to comment.
Can I make one more? And
Yeah.
also, can we have a time frame associated with that? Comments back by some time frame?
so
But I'm working on it.
you're doing great, but
Great format.
just recognizing that the board approves a recommendation to carry this forward to General Assembly at our May meeting. So maybe something in line with it's announced at that May meeting, and then by the time we do our June approval,
Yep.
you have to provide comment within that window. Sorry, I could see that the multitask listening to me in writing was.
So I have under section 2, duties and functions, annually approve the agency budget after opportunity for review and comment by member communities by May 30th. And then by June 30th, it doesn't work, it's close. I'll work on the fine tuning.
I wonder if you don't want to tie it to May, because your example was if you got a new grant in September. What if you said, after 20 days notice of opportunity and an opportunity to review and comment, and that way you could put out something in October that says, please get back to me or the board in the next 20 days. We're considering adding this to the budget, and then people have time to get that to you.
agency budget, approve the agency budget after a 20-day review, 20-day opportunity to review and comment by member communities. Then by June 30th and amend this.
Okay.
We'll fine tune that language.
Yeah. So we do need, is there anybody on Zoom that had, you said that, was it Julie? That's a great idea.
And then doing a few emojis, pretty much just celebrating the idea.
We can just make sure we get an emoji in the record for.
Specifically, it was like the one that's getting confetti blasted out of it.
Got it.
Alex?
Sorry, go ahead. Were you saying something?
You're good.
I'm Alex Morrow from Lincoln County on behalf of Carrie Kipfer, our county administrator. I apologize, I am standing on behalf of Carrie, so I don't have the full background, but since the governance decisions are going to be moved from the members to the board, is there an opportunity to create a structure for members to provide input through an official budget committee along the way? And again, I apologize if that is already a structure that's in place, but.
No, that isn't currently a structure in place. But I do think we need to, like, I think the opportunity, since we're looking for the flexibility to be able to amend as needed as like funding sources come in. I think creating a model, I mean, people are always open to provide feedback to the organization or myself about concerns with the budget or things related to that. But if we provide that time window in there, I think that sort of covers that process to be able to support that going forward. But I think we do need, I know you said we need time to finesse in that, but I think if we're gonna move forward with a proposal today.
Yep, I
need some type of.
Yep, I annually approve the agency budget by June 30th and amend as needed after a 20-day opportunity for review and comment by member communities. Period.
I have a comment. Is it okay to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's Dan Stevenson with Mara. My only question is, Matthew, what's your normal posting before you have any kind of a board meeting?
We usually do it 30 days.
You do 30 days. Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'm comfortable with 20 days. I sometimes worry about so many days because sometimes when you talk about grants, you're up against it and you're waiting for a public posting. I'd be more in favor of 15 days, but if it's the wishes of General Assembly with 20, I'd be fine with that.
I would say I agree with that. I like the 2-week kind of window. So I think people kind of wait till the end. They either act on it or they wait. So 2 weeks.
15 days instead of 20.
Yeah, that's something.
I support that. Thank you.
Especially because we're still looking for board of directors members. I'd say we probably don't want to add the level of complexity of a finance committee as well. Because if people want to have input, come join the board. Yeah, absolutely. I've heard some discussion. Would somebody in the General Assembly like to propose an amendment to? And I know Sally's the closest to Matt's chicken scratch.
Okay, I'll try to read it.
Oh, you'll never
Well,
figure it
maybe-
out. How about if I
Why
read
don't you just read
it?
it? I'll propose it. It'll be
So
okay, but
the
I'll-
proposed amendment is to strike in section 3, A, regular meetings, the annual budget shall be adopted no later than June 30th of each year. And replace it under section 2, duties and functions of the board of directors. Adding in L, annually approve the agency budget by June 30th and amend as needed after a 15-day opportunity for review and comment by member communities. I'm recording that, Michael, so we'll get that language actually. Perfect.
I'll second Sally's one.
Okay. Painful. So we got a motion and a second. Any comment on that amendment? Thanks for the proposal that helped us with the conversation. Seeing none? All those in favor? And opposed? Thank you all. See, I told you riveting business meeting.
This is why we're not doing this in general assembly.
Did like that you led the amendment with General Assembly doesn't know and is ill advised on the budget process after we approve the budget. But we're working this going.
That's the idea.
Moving over for director's report.
I kept, well, like 6 pages or 7 pages later, whatever it is, I kept my director's report pretty short this year. We've been through a steady change of staff changes. Claire and Reed moved on. Claire's going back into teaching. Reed got a position with Fiscal Coalition Maine, which is actually his passion. We're excited to see Kate land in Waldoboro full time, and Daniel land. Geez, I don't usually use. Never heard you. Wow, maybe I'm not that excited about it. Is moving on to Warren full time. So we had to go about and find replacements for them, and it was something I had actually hoped to kind of push off to the new executive director, but we just have too much going on. We couldn't wait. So we've added Sydney Rinaldi, if you can wave your hand, who's essentially Reed's replacement, working the sustainability program. Michael Martone from Damascata, and Andy's not here. I hope he's still talking to me. But Michael comes on with a fair amount of planning experience, and we're excited about that. And he's in 1 week, he's already plugged into all the communities. I think Todd knows that already. Ariana Muka, who is not on board with us yet, she'll come on I believe it's July 20th. Ariana is a planner out right now, out in Aurora, but she was born and raised in Portland. Had a landscape architect background and then got her master's in planning after that. And we're excited to bring her back to Maine. And she will take on a minimum NBRC responsibilities, and the new code enforcement training and coordination program that we have on board. She has a background in working with the code enforcement office in Aurora, so she's a really good fit for that program. And then since Mark is sitting right next to me and still talking to me, Jen Curtis from BAT, who has come on and will replace really Kate's role in running the technical assistance program, but also Jen has background in floodplain management. That's another 3-year contract that we've taken that covers a staff person for training and assisting communities in the floodplain management program. So we're excited to have all those changes. I feel like we've got a nice powerhouse of planning professionals to build on, and more importantly, it didn't work out quite the way you would expect it to, because the idea is that the COGS train people, bring people along, and then they go out and they start working full-time in our communities, and that way we build the planning strength across the region. And unfortunately, we stole 2 back, so we're even up as opposed to adding to the planning culture. This past year, there are a couple things that have really happened that I'm excited about. Number one is MARC, the Maine Association of Regional Councils, has become a much stronger organization than it had in the past. And it's a member organization of 10 folks from around the region, around the state. We have been active in coordinating with MOCA, the Maine Office of Community Affairs, which is essentially where a lot of your municipal grant programs are going to go through. And if you haven't heard me say it, Council of Governments and Planning Commissions are statutorily created to be the liaison between state agencies and municipalities. And that idea has re-landed as MCOG gets established, somewhat replacing the role of the old state planning office. And we're excited about that relationship. We're excited to continue to build it, and it's an important relationship with our legislators. So that's our next step, is to begin strengthening that legislative relationship. New programs, we've been operating the sustainability and resiliency program. Meg has done a superb job. That the number of grants that woman has written in the last 2 or 3 months is unbelievable. And that also includes Dan and a few others that pitched in, did a remarkable job in helping communities with resiliency planning. Rebecca is working on a new program, Safe Streets for All, that we hope will be the beginning of a number of federal state grants that MCOG is working on. This is a safety program for Knox County communities along Route 1. It's one of the programs that we're still waiting for the federal government to finalize the grant, which always makes my budget hat and my management hat a little nervous. But I think that we'll have that straightened out in the next month. Rural Food Grant Program is one that we worked with a grant writer, essentially, who was interested in us fronting the program, in which we're working with a warehousing operation that is both dry and cold and deep freeze storage in Cumberland, and learning the food network movement from production to process to distribution. And Charlotte and Max are really taking on that role. It's an important part of our SEDGE program and understanding food management, food development in our region. And if we can get a better handle on this distribution system, we know, working with some of our other, including a loan client, we know that has been issues from time to time. And if we can understand this movement of supply to delivery and deliverables, that we will better understand our system. We'll also hopefully branch into that in the agriculture and seafood business, which has additional safety requirements associated with that. So our goal this fall with another grant is actually to inventory and understand those needs in the Mid-Coast region better for aquaculture, seafood industries. And we're working with MOCA on a small grant to do that work.
Matt, can I just interrupt a second and make sure you're piggybacking on the work that was done in the Sea Main and
We are. We are, and we're also piggybacking on the food economy discussions. And I really, more than anything, what we've been told is that there's a need to better coordinate the players and operators that are in this region.
right, there was a lot of time spent on that and on trying to figure out routes and distribution and sharing of resources that way, so.
And that should provide us the core. It'll be interesting. We received, again, through a program that was fronted by Mark, a 3-year grant to develop a code enforcement administration and assistance program. There are different organizations taking different routes. We're hoping that Ariana can front and work with all of your code enforcement officers to better piggyback with MMA training, but also really begin to understand the needs in the region and figure out how we can plug and play at different times when there are shortages, or figure out how we can help bring additional code officers into the fold. Interesting subject. Floodplain management program, we talked a little bit about that. Jen will take that on. That's another 3-year program that was actually funded by the state and was concerned with the fact that communities really had been engaged with the floodplain program statewide. And then Max, we received the Brownfield program last fall. We received a contract in February, I think it was finally. More or less.
Yeah, I think we started site visits in January because of this shutdown. But I'll say no more.
And so that program is actually operating so well that we're not taking on additional assessments right now. And Max is really angling to expand that funding source. At our loan program, which is the other side of that, it's a grant loan program. So far, all we've done is given out a grant. We'd like to get to the point of giving out loans because the most important part about that is replicating a loan resource that we can work with Maine Redevelopment Plan Bank Authority. And do more work around the region, and both in the public and the private sector. I wanted to talk a little bit about loan activity. We did receive an NBRC loan, which was a big expansion of our loan program. And we made 4 loans since the first of the year, which is a lot for us. We're usually about 2 to 3 a year. And so I provided the folks that we provided those loans to. The last one being the Lincoln store in Warren, which as soon as we get reimbursed by NBRC, I'll be able to make that loan. And we're waiting every day. I noted here that we're in a workout with the Maine Food Group that we are having conversations with, and we do expect to lose 75,000 on the American Unagi loan, and that's one that we probably note as one of the more disappointing because of the advancement of that whole concept of producing and being able to create a product and sell eels in a grown state, a real value added process and a really interesting technology. And we're really sad to see that they did not make it. We're still waiting and hoping that something comes to replace it. And then I can let Mark talk about the executive director search.
Well, I guess I'll take the opportunity to talk about the executive director search. So we are searching for a new executive director for the organization. Matt will be stepping down in September and transitioning to part-time work to help steer the ship on our loan program through the end of the new year. But we do have the position posted through a number of channels. It's outlined in here that, we have a schedule for the first week of August. We're hoping to have interviews with a replacement to be in place sometime in September or October in that time frame. So excited. Christina Egan from Executive Director from Greater Portland Council of Governments is involved with that hiring committee, as well as Mark Waltz from Tossum, Sally Costello from Brunswick, Kate Guy, who's representing the staff, but will be transitioning to Waldoboro. This is both exciting, anxiety producing, certainly. Appreciate everything that Matt has brought to helping the organization grow and stabilize and be a real resource in the region going forward. So this won't be the last time that I say thank you for your work here in helping us and helping the region. But if you know anybody who you think might be a good fit for the organization or the work that we do here, certainly either connect with me. We'll also be broadcasting out some more of the information about with the job advertisement as well. So,
And I really just want to thank Matt, because Matt has done a tremendous job in building this organization. His leaps and bounds in the last almost 5 years that Matt has been here. And I just really want people to know that, we're on track financially, we're on track with staff, we're on track just to be so much better and so much more productive for the region. I think I attribute a lot of that to Matt and his work. So I just want to thank you.
he does keep telling me to stop acknowledging his impending retirement, and he's not going away right away, and stop acting like I'm going away right away. But coming out of the director's report, website update, and I apologize, I don't know who's coming with the website. That's all right. Charlotte?
Max, pull up the shirt.
While Max is pulling up my materials. Hi, everyone. My name's Charlotte. I do data for MCOG. So you might know me through that lens, but I also do websites and the newsletters. So you might know me from getting a lot of emails from me. So I'm going to be giving an update on our website because we just kind of revamped the whole structure of it. And that's now live, and we want to make sure that our communities know kind of where to go for different information on all of the programs that Matt just talked about in his director's report. So I'm going to jump around a little bit because the website is about the entire organization. So we're going to touch on a lot of different points, but we're going to start with this flow chart that our staff one staff meeting, it was a really neat discussion. We all came together and we said, okay, we do a lot of work in the region. What is our organizational structure and how do all these pieces fit together? So
It's a really fun exercise.
it was cool. It was cool. So of course, General Assembly comes first. That's why it's at the bottom, but that's first place. So that's you guys. General Assembly, Board of Directors, that has informed our strategic plan. And that strategic plan is on our website too. Up to the executive director, we have a triangle of data, policy, finance. And then all of that supports our programs, which is what, the focus of the report was on. So housing, transportation, sustainability, business development, TA, technical assistance, and land use. So that is really, that kind of yellow bar across there is really the structure that we wanted to build the website around, to sort of display all of the work that, General Assembly up to that triangle does. So this is sort of the background for the new layout of the website, which we can go to now. Great.
Isn't it lovely?
It is. Great. Okay, thank you. So our tabs up top have changed. That's the main difference. And we also wanted to, update on the homepage. A lot of the hard work that we have done as a staff, we really want to celebrate that front and center, show some numbers, show a lot of our successes. So the homepage is updated. We have different feature projects. Transportation, brownfields program, housing updates are some of the, really kind of major projects that we have going on right now, but those will continue to change. So keep, check into the homepage every once in a while. And then we have our newsletters up here and kind of general updates as well. So don't forget to check the homepage. If you make that a part of your routine, that would be great. And also feel free to give feedback or send things through a newsletter or anything that you'd like. So, and then our
Should be, forgetting her name, shout out.
Shout out to Mary Dale Abernathy, who was a volunteer. Yeah, she's known by certain individuals here. I didn't know her before this. She's incredible. She's based out of somewhere in Knox County. It was one of those, Zoom relationships where we never actually met in person, but we've tons of phone calls, and she's really, really, really good at website development and sort of helping us figure out what our message is and communicate that. So she put in a lot of work as a volunteer. Thank you, Matt. That was on my plan to acknowledge her. So really, really, really grateful. So she helped, kind of do the tabs and figure out sort of the overall layout. So in the about, we have, kind of just the general strategic plan overview. We added very clearly the membership services. So that's where you can go to see, okay, we're a member community. This is what we get. These are the policies. This is what we have access to. These are the contacts. So we wanted to make that front and center. For municipal services, this is where that flow chart comes in. We have all of our programs under this. So housing, transportation, sustainability, technical assistance. And then we couldn't leave out the SEDS. Of course, the SEDS is under here as well, because that directly relates. So I'm gonna go into one of the pages. Let's go technical assistance. That's a good one. All of these pages are laid out the same. What we do, these are the services that we provide. So you can click on this button. And we do land use, comprehensive planning, zoning and ordinance development. And you can, there's so much to scroll that I'm not going to do right now, but resources and contact. There's, so much here that I'm sure a lot of you know of already. But we wanted to have it, all on one sort of page to have that centralized for anyone who wants to see it. So that's sort of, they're all laid out the same in terms of what we do, our current projects and sort of highlight projects, and then resources and contact information. So that's, the general layout. Then we have business services. We have our loan program, which Matt talks about, has been expanding and doing great. Our brownfields program, and then our regional food hub is all under the business services right now. Data and maps haven't changed too much. And then we have impacts. That's directly coming out of our SEDS program right there. So our SEDS, if you haven't read it, have a glance. It's long, but just have a glance through it. Again, that's under municipal services and comprehensive economic development, or you can go to impacts. And that's really kind of the key strategic economic development plan for the region. We wanted to say, okay, how are we doing in terms of meeting our goals for the SEDS? And there's certain objectives. There's a lot of objectives that are laid out in the SEDS plan. And so, this page kind of gets at how we're meeting those. So the objectives of the SEDS are, there's 3 different categories of objectives. The first one, they're all measures of different types of sustainability. And this came directly from our SEDS executive committee in the planning process. Measures of community sustainability, business and workforce sustainability, and public infrastructure and natural resources sustainability. Can you see this text back there, or should I make it bigger? Yeah. Okay, great. And I'm sort of breezing over that because we went through our SEDS, the last couple general assemblies. So, in terms of the actual data, we have, different categories within each measure of sustainability. And this is just our, initial data dig. And the formatting is off because my computer is so big that it allows for a bigger space. And this computer is a little bit smaller. So that is something that I'm seeing to fix. Right there, because it cut off the 2025. But I'll go through some of these, we can celebrate some of the successes. Ensure a 10% increase in housing starts. I'm sure a lot of you saw the statewide and filled out the statewide building permits survey. This is coming directly from that. So in 2025, across the region, there were 138 new units. I think, yeah, new units. That seems low right now, but I'll revisit that. And then we're going to measure that in 2026 and measure the percent change. So that'll look different next year. Maintain a 5% vacancy rate in rental housing. This is not including short-term rentals. So that was the vacancy rate for rental housing was 4.4 in 2024 and 5.
Sorry, I just realized people on Zoom probably aren't seeing this,
Oh, no.
but keep going and I'm gonna just jump onto this. Sorry for people on Zoom who probably didn't. All right, sorry about that, everyone. People on Zoom, can you see this now? I'm going to hope that you can.
Assume that they can.
I'm assuming they can. Go ahead, sorry about that, everyone.
Okay. There we go. Well, they at least heard the audio, so now you can go to the website and see for yourself. So vacancy rate in rental housing, ensure a measurable increase in affordability. So we looked at the main housing affordability indices, and apparently from 2024 to 2025, we got 8% more affordable. So doesn't quite feel like it sometimes in some ways, but that's what the data there is showing. So that's a really great trend. Ensure an increase in housing units available to workers at 80 to 20% of area median income. That again came from the statewide building permit survey. We're up 20 units in 2025. So that's a small, not small, but that's good steps toward that we're taking. And it's in green because it's a positive number. And then make sure every community makes measurable progress to one or more of these housing objectives. And this is the first one that's grayed out. This will be assessed in the 5-year update. So this will be, something that we look into when we do the update in, is it 2030? Yeah, for the major sets update. The second category under community sustainability is quality of place. Attract and retain 5% more residents of workforce age. This was a 0% change in 2025, which was very unsatisfying, but something to work towards. Another objective was to utilize the Maine Redevelopment Land Bank Authority. Thank you both for being here. Big check mark there because we've been working with them on various projects. So that's great. Ensure 100% of MCOG towns have a current up-to-date comprehensive plan or are actively working on it. Currently 44% of our communities are doing that or have a plan or are working on it. And then increase historic preservation funding. And increase green space, preserve land, street trees, park development, et cetera. And those will be assessed in the 5-year update. And then the last category under community sustainability is community vitality. Increase shared services across municipalities. That's, as a regional organization, we're always thinking of how we can, kind of foster those efficiencies between communities. And this is based off of our SED survey, so we're waiting on a couple more responses for that. CRP, the Community Resilience Partnership, Meg and other staff members have been doing an incredible job in getting enrollment. So we're at 69% in 2025, which is really quite good. Increase population age variation. A stat that I always go back to is by 2040, the Maine State Economist is predicting that in several of our counties, the most populous age bracket will be 85 plus. And so trying to figure out the ways that, through economic development, we can smooth out that age range and have people of all age populations in our communities. And so this is ACS data, which is always a little changes from year to year. So we're going to watch kind of the overall trends and do an update of this in the 5-year update. But currently it looks like a bit of a decrease in the sort of the peak age of the region, which is a decent trend to kind of flatten out that curve there. But we'll be reassessing. So then increased population by in-migration. This is IRS data, so it's really neat. It's not sample data, it's true data looking at how people have moved from county to county. So this is always really fun to look at. The data is a little old because it lags by 3 years, but plus 3,500 people moving into the state, into our region. Because it's county level data, that excludes Brunswick and Harpswell. So that's there's always a limitation. But that's really neat to see. And then increase the use of alternative transportation. Thank you for your work, Rebecca. And then save on regional energy costs through electrification initiatives. And there's a lot of opportunities around that. I know that certain partners are working on different electrification processes, and that's something that's on our radar through the SEDS as well. So this area bugs me because there's a whole lot of gray, but this is, how to foster a diverse economy. And we want to grow these key areas or support communities and organizations in growing these key areas by 10% in 5 years. So the reason that this is all grayed out is we have this really incredible data set from Purdue University that breaks everything down at the economic development district level. So that means that we have the data for Brunswick and Harpswell as well as the rest of our region. So we could get this data from at the county level, but so much of this happens here in this town that we are choosing to wait for the next data set. We have the 2023 data, and the 2024 data will be coming out soon. And so then this will be updated when that happens. So stay tuned, because once this fills up with colors, I think it's going to be a really, really interesting, kind of page to gauge each of these different economies that are unique to this state and especially this region that we're all so strong in. So that's going to be a really, really interesting thing to come back to. And then also daycare is a huge priority in terms of a diverse economy, because that allows for other workers to come into the economy and, live out their entrepreneurial pursuits or join the workforce. But daycare is becoming increasingly expensive, and that's a huge barrier. So unfortunately, that is down 6% in 2024. But again, that doesn't include Brunswick. And I know that there has been daycare development in Brunswick. So sometimes there's data limitations and we just work with them. Yeah, Rose.
Is that slots? Is it?
This is employment. This
Okay.
is measured by employment.
Okay,
Yeah, I know. I wish I could get slots.
it's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe the state AG.
Yeah, they do, but they don't have it aggregated. So I'd have
Okay.
individually, I'd have to find every single daycare place
Yeah.
that's registered in our region.
Yeah.
But we thought that employment was an okay proxy because there's, it changes for different age kids, but then there's, set amounts of, number of children that each employee can take care of. So we thought that was a good proxy. So increase available workforce by 5% in 5 years. That changed again 0% in 2024. So we will look at that. So our last measure of sustainability, public infrastructure and natural resources. This is, a lot of these are kind of goals that we're continuing to monitor and continuing to work towards. They're not necessarily, measurable right here, right now. Are we working towards this? Create a used and useful regional transportation study, establish a daily strategy, and establish a daily passenger rail from Brunswick to Rockland. So those are both in our SEDS. Really, really neat objectives, and we are actively working towards them. I'm really excited to, give the update in at the 5-year mark. Public access, that's to working waterfronts, to parks, to open space, etc. Looking to double the amount of state and federal funds brought to the region for municipal projects. Preserve and improve working waterfront access. Make sure, the coastal communities in our region have looked at sea level rise, considered what that means for their communities, and then, thought about what their vulnerabilities are in terms of their infrastructure. Preserving and improving marine access for uses other than commercial fishing. Commercial fishing is, of course, incredibly important, but our blue economy, like we talked about, is ever changing, and there's so much new technology that's coming up, in all realms of the maritime economy. So we're keeping an eye on that. And then create plans to improve condition of at-risk infrastructure. In terms of our natural resources sustainability, funding the brownfield program, we have really been rolling that out. So that's a big check mark as well. And then ensuring there's sufficient agricultural land for serving local markets. This objective came about before we started the Regional Food Hub program, which is a really great way of supporting our suppliers and farmers and producers in accessing cold storage, because they can have their own, business that's doing well and that has so much potential. But if they don't have access to kind of the downstream markets the flow of, the food markets, then their businesses aren't actually being supported. So I'm personally just very excited to see how that one evolves. And then supporting aquaculture sites to meet, current and future needs, both for businesses and for, demand coming from this region. And then, we think so much about the ocean, but we have a lot of freshwater resources as well. Our lakes are in our region. Some of them are severely at risk. And I know a lot of municipalities rely on, the property taxes around those lakes. And it's a community hub. It's where people recreate. It's where people come and visit. And so we don't want to forget about our inland waters as well. And then our last one, increase physically interconnected natural areas to really support our, natural wildlife on land too. So this is ever evolving. This is guided by our SEDS advisory committee, which is a really, really wonderful group of people from all over the region geographically and all sorts of, different, we have municipalities, we have business owners, we have different organizations involved. And so this is, going to be updated. It's going to change. So stay tuned, refer back to it. Feel free to email and ask any questions. But yeah, we wanted to give you that update. So great.
I think there was a question in the chat. Or no? Oh, come on. Did anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, my question was, when is the 5-year update? I couldn't see it on the screen there.
That's in 2030.
Okay. So a ways, yeah.
It's a ways, yeah. We really just went through our last 5-year update. This is the first annual update that we've done since producing the 5-year update.
Charlotte,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the place for it, but does MCOG take like policy or advocacy positions on different issues that are coming up in communities or in the region? And that might be a Matt question.
Or a Mark question.
Or a Mark question. And I'll be very specific. When I look at Charlotte's data, they always talk about, demographics or the future. I mean, if you can look at here, how many 18-year-olds it's going to be in 18 years from now. In Damascata right now, the Lincoln Health Hospital is closing they're talking about closing their labor and delivery. That's one of those, kernel seeds that, if you take that away, then you take away the incentive for younger people to come to the area. And then you have a hard time attracting people. It affects daycare, it just ripples out from these areas. And, you start to see the hollowing out of regions because it's hard to attract those folks that are really going to be the workers of the future. And so does a place like MCOG take a position on that, health, lodging, Maine Health and that sort of thing?
I think it's less of a position, but if asked, providing really good information about the pros and cons of what it means to help people make a reasonable decision or take a reasonable position. Politically, we're a neutral organization, but but we can't plug in and do really good demographic and economic impact analysis to suggest what the impacts of that might be.
Well, your sense would be fairly clear about what
Yeah.
the impact will be, and it's gonna be negative, so.
And that we're happy to provide that kind of information.
Okay, well, I guess just being from that region, the time to do it would be now, so, you know.
Yeah.
Or maybe 6 months ago, so.
Yeah, I think it's the challenge of being able to find those gaps. I was trying to think when you asked the questions, I can't think of any local, any time that we've gotten engaged in policy at the local level, except for what Matt is saying, like providing supportive information, being a part of, you know, a group trying to advocate by providing data or providing information. We do, however, at the state level, there have been times that we have advocated for policy changes and at the legislative level, but mostly for supportive funding to continue to see those funds come into the region, or for those funds to flow through a cog to be able to then be better served to the community.
A good example of where we were kind of towing the line was, as planners, we participated in the growth management program, but as a cog, we did not take a particular position, because the cogs were so different that we made a very specific determination to make sure that our planners are free to participate in that discussion, so the growth management program could come out the best it could possibly be, which I think ultimately it did after going willy-wagging a couple different places. That was a good one where we stayed away from the legislative policy level, but at the same time let loose our planners to participate in that process and help, you know, formulate that new law.
Jane?
We raised this issue about advocacy last year at this meeting in connection with fishing regulations, and I understand your reluctance to have us as a cog do advocacy, but to the Damascotta point, it does seem like if we had some kind of infrastructure, like an advocacy committee or some policy committee, that those municipalities that had a concern like this, we could be sharing the data that would support the argument that to attract a younger workforce to Maine, we need to have labor and delivery rooms nearby in every community or as close as possible. And we'd be able to access the data relatively quickly, any and all of us that were interested. You know, if there were some place we could collect that sort of information so that when those towns that wanted to submit letters to the legislature could do it, we'd have a place to go. That would be great.
Thanks, Jane. Jay?
Thank you. Yeah, just to add to what Jane was saying, I was thinking the same thing. Being proactive rather than waiting to be asked to reach out. Legislatively, you can testify neither for nor against, but give information. And you can speak to policy. Things like Maine Health, I think the same thing. You could do outreach with not waiting to be asked for data, but giving it based on comments like that. This is a problem for Damascotta, for example. I like that idea that Jane suggested.
I would actually like to advocate for the other side of that. And that is that I think that the current state of the universe, trustworthiness is a very fragile life form. And that if MCOG wants to retain a sense of authority and a sense of believability, it needs to be a provider of fair facts and be a trustworthy organization rather than picking and choosing what you want to advocate for. I would be of service to people who need advocates, but not do that ourselves. And I just went through the mission statement. I don't find a reference to fairness or objectivity in the mission statement, but rather, even some references to, advocating at the state level. And I would just caution you to be very careful, because if MCOG gets labeled, it will destroy its credibility with everybody in the community, one way or the other. You don't want to be a target for something like that. You really need to remain purer than Caesar's wife in this. Very difficult, because we all want to advocate for things, and we all feel that we know what's right, but not everybody feels the same way. And so I think being a numbers person, being a facts organization, being reputable is more important in the long run than picking a fight over something that we mostly believe in.
I think there's a way that you can do this without being seen as biased toward an issue that maybe not everyone agrees with. I think a policy committee could have a set of criteria that would say, is this policy issue squarely in, planning, for example, or squarely in just these activities that we work on all the time. And if they're not squarely in what we're doing, then it's probably not something we should be advocating for, and we probably aren't an important voice for that. But I do think that there are going to be policy issues that will impact the work that this organization is doing, and they should be empowered to be able to speak to that. And it doesn't have to be political. I think it just has to be really highly aligned with the work that's already happening.
So an example of us engaging in all of these different ways, we have been for 3 years now members of the statewide Working Waterfront Coalition. Charlotte and I have represented MCOG on that coalition. And over the past year, I've been the policy task force co-chair with Stacy Keeper from Maine Marine Trades. And, our sense is pretty clear that we want to preserve and support working waterfront access, working waterfront economy generally. I don't think we've had a really politically tough issue supporting that. But over the past year, 9 months, that task force has worked pretty heavily with Maine DEP, with the Army Corps of Engineers, to set up several convenings with various stakeholders with the express purpose not of changing any DEP policy or any permitting processes, but attempting to make it easier for landowners, business owners to actually work with the DEP to do the permitting right. So we have taken several policy engagement stances. We helped support the legislative establishment of the Working Waterfront Advisory Council, Blue Economy Task Force similarly in the past. So those are kind of examples of ways that we've engaged in alignment with our SEDS, not pushing to change the active legislation, but pushing to help people better understand what is on the books, how to navigate those systems, et cetera.
I think Dan, Stephen, that is Brad, Jane.
Yeah, I saw him up there, Mark. I would say we want to be very careful before we take policy positions to make sure we've considered all the sides. And just to play devil's advocate, I suspect Maine Health doesn't really want to stop delivering babies in Damascata. But if you look at our basically 3 hospital systems in Maine, a lot of them are on the verge of failure, especially the more further up the state you go and the less private health insurance there is. Maine Health would probably say, help us find more revenue, and we'll be more than happy to do this. But if you don't, we're trying to find a way to survive. So I don't think we want to necessarily, without considering everything, take positions. Dan?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just a couple of things. First of all, rural healthcare is a problem nationally, and you do want to be careful of conflict amongst communities. A couple of things though, MMA, you can get what I like about the information that you have, you get it to MMA, they can act on behalf of the region with first session coming up with a number of policy issues, and you should already have representation on that board. Also, Maine Association of Planners have been getting a lot more involved now. They had a lobbyist last year. So I think there are other advocacy groups that can support support or not support bills based off data that's supplied by MCOG. And also, you know, I spent most of my career at the municipal level, and nothing precludes towns or cities to going up and testifying just on behalf of your own communities. And I strongly encourage you doing that. I've done that for years. Thank you.
And I see Jeremy putting up his clapping hands. Jeremy and I have both served on the MMA Legislative Policy Committee. I think there's people in this room who have also been a part of that as well, which can be a good help at that level to help with either the LPC or with the MMA Advocacy Communications Group as well. Jeremy, and then Jane, I am coming to. I just want people to have an opportunity to speak on it before coming back around.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. I think that's right. I think working with MMA, McCog could do very well at that, providing us info. And I just wanted to agree with Dan, what Dan had to say, and the gentleman who spoke before Dan. I wholeheartedly agree with both of those perspectives. I mean, it's happening on the Blue Hill Peninsula. I think it's happened on Bar Harbor. It's happened in Belfast, where I live. So it is something that's facing everyone. And I think if we can marshal any information to the entities that are out there, whether it's the Maine planners or McCaw or Maine Municipal through the LPC, I think that's the way to go. And again, municipalities can go represent themselves in front of the legislature as well. If there's a bill that's coming forward to address this issue, I'm not sure there is yet. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. Jane Conrad.
So I think all these points are great. And the only thing I would say is that if you could collect in one place the data, if a community has asked for data about the example you're giving now about closing maternity wards, you know, that would be one thing. Or if you have specific data about, you know, licensing permits and aquaculture or something like that. If we had a place on the website or a person that was the contact person for those of us for municipalities, that we could call this one person who's then, maybe it's Charlotte, who's going to be able to give us the data that would support a particular position, then those communities that do want to take a position would have the data. That is what would be helpful. I totally understand MCOG not wanting to be the one doing advocacy, but you know, if instead of reinventing the wheel every time a community wants to do it, if we'd have a.
Oh, you're muted, Jane.
I would like to just comment quickly that I think that we need to be careful, and we probably should take the lead from a standpoint of looking at what our organization wants to provide. So I do agree with whoever said, look at the entire picture so that we are never accused of going in the direction of one political leaning or the other, that we're just the organization that is gathering information, and communities can do with it what they will, and stay there and look at what we need to do as a group to gather information always to help our communities, but not react to something that might come through that would look like it's one party or another, or one leaning or another, so that any of us who are elected on this board will have issues, you know, with our constituents.
Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate all the great comments on this. That was a good trip to go through. I think it would be beneficial from the board perspective if we have some continued discussion on this, and maybe bring back in November at the General Assembly, like some sort of follow-up, either highlighting, you know, policy changes or positions or some of those outlets to make sure people are aware of what channels they have available to them, particularly when trying to advocate at the state level or trying to advocate even in their own communities with different organizations. I know we're right up against break, so I didn't want to delay anything. I did want to note really quickly, I love quick and easy wins, so it's great to see the green check mark on the Brownfields program. And I love the Brownfields funds being back at MCOG. It's a great thing to have. I'm also aware of how highly competitive those funds are into the future. So Matt talked about it a little bit during the director's report, like the importance for MCOG to be able to facilitate business loans and to build up that fund to actually have program income to be able to move forward. The next round of assessment and cleanup grants were announced yesterday. There's no funds in this region, and obviously MCOG has funds available. And there's funds available at the state level, but vast applications didn't get approved. Maybe some of you also didn't get approved for funds. It's all Portland South and Augusta North, which is fine. There's certainly work that needs to take place in those communities. But it's vital to be able to have access to these dollars for cleanup and trying to activate some of these brownfield sites. So I think going forward, as we continue to think about that and how we can grow program income and have a program you can support into the future, that'd be good. But thank you, Charlotte, for the presentation.
Before we wrap up, I do want to say, if you have any data questions, please reach out. I'm the data contact. I can give you my email if you don't have it already. It's also on our website. And I also wanted to, say if you have data, needs, have a look at our data page. It's under story maps under our data page. And there's so much there that relates to a bunch of different topics. We have, again, from our homepage, we have 11 major data sets published. That is published for our communities. That's published for you to use. They're not hidden. They're right front and center on our data page. So please use them, look at them, ask questions, clarify, and those will be, continue to be updated with more recent data as it starts to age out. We're already in our second phase of the data. We published our first data sets, and then we've gone and redone them already to come up with new, more current data. So please visit those and utilize the data department as a resource for you. So just wanted to end on that note.
Thanks, Charlotte. And actually, we'll end really quick on need a motion to adjourn for the General Assembly meeting. Second. A motion and a second. All those in favor? Never seen one fail. Thank you all.
We're taking.
And we're gonna be